Hey, welcome to Zen Den Stories. My name is Luke Pearce, and here I tell stories that help you to think differently. Today I want to share a tale with you that was actually a personal experience that I had many years ago. If you could imagine that a father of two children was coming home one day, and both their kids ran up to the front door and they said to me, Dad, guess what? In a very excited and ecstatic voice. You would think that it would get my attention, which it did. And I said, What's that? What are you guys doing? And Frankie, my daughter, said, well, me, Mum, and Rocky are all going shopping. Not you, just us. That means that you can have the TV all to yourself. Now I want you to imagine again, myself with two young kids. Very, very rarely do I get to watch what I actually want on the TV. Normally cartoons or kids programs, which is cool. But on this day, things are very, very different. They said, you get to stay here, Dad, and you can watch and do whatever it is that you want to do. And we will be back this afternoon. I was like, oh my God, I got a little bit of time by myself. I was super excited. They got ready and off they went. They went shopping. They got ice cream. They had lunch. They made an absolute day of it. And as soon as they left, I looked at the couch. I looked at the remote. I looked at the couch again, literally jumped to the couch, and I started to flick through the channels. Now, if you've ever had Foxtel or cable TV, you would know that there's 50 million different TV channels on there. And majority of those channels are all garbage. So I sat there and I'm flicking through, and I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, there is so much just garbage on this TV. What are people doing? What are they actually watching? And I flicked through literally every channel on that station, and I got to the National Geographic channel. And it started to really gain my attention because it was about a person who was a journalist who wanted to detail and document some of the harshest living environments on planet Earth. And this is pretty cool because the one thing that really grabbed my attention was he was saying that the people that are not only living in these areas, but they are surviving and also thriving in these areas where people, humans, should not be able to survive. So I was like, man, this is really cool. I'll learn something out of this. So I got hunkered down, I got some snacks, ready to rock and roll, watching this program. And it started off with this journalist in England, and was telling his story about how he lived in the middle of England, and this is what he did for his job, and he does a lot of work online and all these sorts of things. Goes to the gym, looks after himself, got himself a girlfriend, all, the normal life sort of things. And then it has him sitting on a plane, eating his little snacks, going to the middle of Africa. Now, as he's on the plane, he's playing over in his head, what's it going to be like? What have I got myself into? I'm literally heading to the middle of the desert in Africa. I don't even know if I'll be able to survive. But he thought, you know what? No, I've got this. I've done many things within my life before, so I can't see why I wouldn't be able to handle this. And how true is that? There's many things within our life that we do that maybe we don't know if we're able to handle or not. But if you really think about it, you've got up until this far, so you've handled everything that life has thrown at you. Maybe something to remember. And as he was lying there, he started to drift off to sleep. He had like a 10-hour flight or whatever it is. He wasn't going anywhere, so he thought, well, I might as well get some rest because I've got a lot of walking to do. I've got to walk through the desert to find these people. And as he was sleeping, he started to dream. He started to dream about all the possibilities within his life, what it is that he could do, all the things that he thought that he couldn't do, what it is that he did want to experience. And he remembered that within that dream, a very, very powerful thing happened. He met I think it was like his father or his grandfather in the dream. And the father figure said, you must know what it is that you want to experience within your life. And he says, I don't understand. What are you talking about? He says, well, I've been watching from the other side, and you have been going through life and you are very confused. You're very uncertain on what it is that you want to do with your life. And he said, that's all well and good. That is a part of life. But he says, what you must be certain on is what is it that you want to experience out of life? Do you want love, joy, happiness, acceptance, success, achievement, wealth, all the things? He said, once you decide on what it is that you want, everything else sort of just falls into place. Now, as the father figure was saying, everything falls into place, the plane actually hit a pocket of air within the atmosphere, and it dropped down suddenly, waking him up. And haven't you ever had those dreams before where maybe you hear like a bang and then you actually hear like a bang in real life, or maybe you're falling and you're sort of, head starting to nod off or whatever it might be? That's exactly what this journalist experienced. And he woke up suddenly and he got his journal out and he started to write down all the things that he wanted to experience. He said, I want to have, the love of my life. I want to have the perfect relationship. I want to have all the money in the world, all these sorts of things. The list was about 4 or 5 pages long. Now, the cameraman was sitting next to him on the flight, and he woke up because of the journalist was writing so viciously. And he said, hey, what are you doing? It's the middle of the night. Why aren't you sleeping? We've got like a huge adventure tomorrow. What's going on? He said, man, I just had this dream where I met like my future, my father or whoever it was, this father figure. And it was so true. I've gone through my whole entire life so lost, so uncertain, so confused about what it is that I wanted to do, where what I really wanted is to find out what it is that I wanted to experience. And this cameraman is sitting there thinking, oh my God, what's going on? Are you having like a seizure? What are you doing? I'm going to the middle of Africa with you and you're talking about all this weird stuff. He said, dude, just get some sleep, will ya? So he turned his little nightlife off and back to sleep he went. But as the journalist sat there and he started to write, a really strange thing happened. It was almost like he was writing down all these things that he consciously wanted to experience. And then all of a sudden there was this deep part of himself that continued to write. And he continued to write for hours and hours. He filled up books and books and books filled with all these notes, all these scribbles, all these diagrams, all these things on what it is that he wanted to do. So then he woke up. Everything was getting set up and packed up, ready to land. The captain came on the loudspeaker and said, right, stewardesses, please prepare the cabin for landing. So they landed, they got off the plane, went through the customs, all the things that you do when you get off the plane. Everything was really good. And the cameraman said to the journalist, hey, you look different. What's happened? He said, was it the dream that you had last night? And he says, yeah, man, I think it actually was. It really, really did enlighten me, because I thought I wanted one thing, but I've got books and books and books filled with what it is that I actually want to experience. And it's totally different to what I thought it would be. Anyway, their travel guide rocked up and says, right, get in the car. Here we go. We're gonna head out to this tribe. They would have driven for maybe 4 or 5 hours, and the cameraman was doing his work, getting footage and all these sorts of things. And the journalist was going over his notes of the actual adventure and all the things that he needed to know. And all of a sudden, the travel guide pulls over the 4-wheel drive in the middle of this highway. No one around for hundreds of miles. He says, get out. The cameraman and the journalist look at each other and like, what are you talking about? He said, well, you got to walk from here. Walk? What do you mean? I can't walk through the desert. They were both shouting at the top of their lungs. Like, this is ridiculous. No one told us about this. He said, no. You must walk through here because there's no camels and there's no horses. And he says, why? We were told that there was going to be someone to pick us up on a camel and a horse and take all our stuff to where we need to go. The travel guide said, well, you were told wrong because out here, it is lion country. Camels and horses don't like to play this game. They both looked at each other and the look on their face was priceless because they both understood just how serious things have gotten. He said, now there is going to be a guide that will be coming to get you, but he, my friends, is on foot. He's very wise and he has actually worked with the tribe that you are going to visit for many, many years. So you are in safe hands, my friend. So they got out of the car, they got all their gear packed. And if you could imagine this, on the side of a road, and if you did not say a word, all you can hear is the wind whistling in the background. There was not a cloud in the sky. It was a stinking hot day. There was sand everywhere with a few brown, dead, lifeless shrubs and trees floating around. Other than that, it was literally sand for as far as the eyes could see. At that point, the cameraman turned to the journalist and says, well, this is what we did sign up for. And he started to roll. And he started to get the commentary on the journalist's point of view. He says, well, we're out here, we're starting our adventure, we're in the middle of nowhere, and we are going to visit a tribe that has been surviving and thriving for hundreds of years. He says, I don't know how, I don't know why, and I do not know where, but now we are going to go on the adventure from foot out into lion country. So he turned around and he started to walk. He was following his guide and he was talking to his guide, and the cameraman sort of held back for a little bit because he wanted to get a different point of view of what was going on. Now, the really cool thing was the cameraman was probably about 100 meters back because the guide and the journalist, they got talking. They forgot about the cameraman. And that was all well and good. But like I said, this is lion country. You do not want to be out in the middle of nowhere with no shelter and no protection. Now, the protection was with the guide. He had a rifle. He had, a couple, I think he bought like a spear and a stick. And I thought to myself, oh my God, if I was going to be fighting a lion, I'd probably want more than a stick, although it'd be better than nothing. So the guide turned around and he yelled out, he's like, hey, come back here, trying to get his attention, but the cameraman was way too far away for him to hear anything. Now, the cameraman all of a sudden got this sensation through his body. It was like an energy came not over him, but came through him. And for whatever reason, his intuition was saying to him, be alert, be aware of your surroundings, because he had his eyepiece, or his eye through the eyepiece, looking at all the different footage and scenery. As he put his head out of the camera, he noticed in the distance a pride of lions. Now, these pride of lions were following the three men. Could you imagine how scary it would be to be in the middle of the desert and you've literally got a pride of lions that are following you, stalking you? But these guys, they soldiered on, because at the one point the cameraman actually noticed the lions and he was dead frozen. He just absolutely freezed up and he couldn't move. He was so scared. He was paralyzed by fear. And he said to himself in that moment, I have come all this way to film and do the things that I love to do. I will not let fear hold me back. So there was a part of him that was absolutely terrified, and that was a part that wanted to protect him. But there was also a part that wanted to go on and, live the life that he wanted to live by filming his documentary. That's what he literally loved to do. So he said in that moment, what is it that I need to do right this very second in order to pretty much stay alive so I can do what it is that I love to do and go home to the people that I love? And by that stage, the guide have got back to him and said, hey, make sure you stay very, very close to your guidance. And the journalist was like, yeah, you got to stay close to your guidance. And it turned into a bit of a joke between the cameraman and the journalist. because as they ventured off into the middle of the desert, obviously their guidance was the guide in front of them. But he wasn't talking about the guide in front of him. He was talking about the guidance of the feeling that he got within his body. Because his intuition, his sixth sense, whatever it is that you want to label it as, knew that those lines were there. And see, that is a very fundamental principle of, humans. We know a lot more than what we think we know. So anyway, hours went by and it was now sort of getting on, nightfall. They found the tribe and the tribal elder was there to meet them. And he says, tonight we have a celebration dance for you, because anyone that makes it out to this time and place and location is very, very brave and very, very special. So that night they had a feast. And they had wine and all this, alcohol that they had out in the middle of the desert that they made in a hole with all these other sorts of things. And let's just say that the cameraman and the journalists had a really great night. So much of a great night that they don't remember going to bed. And in the morning, they were woken by the sun rising. As they woke up, as you could imagine, they needed a very big drink of water. Now they are also out in the middle of the desert, and the water that they brought with them was running very, very low, and they had like another 2 nights there. The tribal elder came up and said, looks like you boys had a lot of fun last night. He said, yeah, we definitely did. But we don't regret anything. We're here to experience it all. He said, well, if you're going to experience it all, you must learn how it is that we actually live out here. Because if you want to do whatever it is that you did last night, you would not last very long. He said, but it was a celebration, so we can let it slide this time. He said, the very first thing that we need to do before it gets too hot is find water. The cameraman looked and he said, what do you mean water? Don't you have water out here? He's like, yes, we do, but not for you. We have enough only for our tribe. You must find water for yourself. My guide will take you to where the water is, but you must do it yourself. The cameraman and the journalist set off into the desert once again with their guide, watching out for the lions, walking through up and down hills. Started to get really hot by this time. Now this guide didn't have any water for himself, and the cameraman said, hey, how are you going to get water? How are you going to take it back? He says, I don't need to take it back. I'll just drink while I'm there. He said, well, that's a great way of looking at it, but drink what? All I can see is sand and dirt. He said, well, you see this block of salt? Literally had a block of salt. Took it out of his bag and threw it out into the middle of the desert. And I get it. You're probably thinking, where the bloody hell is this story going? I thought the same thing sitting there on the couch. I'm like, man, this is a weird story. But then all of a sudden, at the middle of nowhere, a baboon of all things came running out of the distance, picked up the salt and started to eat it. Apparently, lo and behold, baboons love eating salt. I didn't know that until then. So this baboon, this monkey, ate this salt, absolutely devoured it like a big block of candy, but obviously salt. And then the next minute you know, the tribesman has actually caught the monkey. And he caught the monkey by putting all these little seeds in a trail. Because the monkey ate the salt, then started to get thirsty, and he started to eat these seeds to, I don't know, quench his thirst, or maybe he was hungry or whatever it might have been. But the seeds led to a hole into an ant's nest. And this ant's nest was so massive, it was beyond 6 foot, but the hole was only just big enough for this monkey to get its hand in. So the monkey ate all the seeds leading up to the ant's nest, and then it put its hand into the little hole that the guide had made to grab onto obviously more seeds. But as he done this, his hand gets stuck within the anthill. Now, the monkey doesn't do anything but just go absolutely ballistic, literally screaming and, yelling and doing whatever monkeys do. And the guy just walks up and puts a leash on it, like literally a dog leash. I'm sitting there thinking, oh my God, this is the weirdest bloody movie I've ever watched before in my life. The guy then ties the monkey to the tree. And he says, right, what we need to do now is wait. And what we need to do now is we need to find shelter. So they find shade, they dig a little hole so it's not so hot, and they're sitting there waiting. Meanwhile, this baboon is going absolutely bonkers because the poor bugger's so thirsty. Now, a couple of hours go by, the guy goes over, takes the monkey off the leash, and this monkey, this baboon, sprints, runs with all his life up to the top of this mountain. Now, the guides and the camera crew, as in the cameraman and the journalist, the two guys, they run after the monkey. They're like, quick, go, go, go. We got to keep an eye on it. Go, 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 go. Follow, follow, follow. And they wanted to follow this monkey because the monkey ran right up to the top of the hill and then disappeared. Because it went down this cave system into a giant well of the most beautiful, clearest, clean water that you would ever imagine within your life. As they got down this cave, it opened up to a absolutely huge reservoir of clean drinking water, and the guide began to laugh. He began to laugh, and the other crew would just look at him thinking, what the hell is going on here? Are we even going to make this out? And he said, well, here's your answer. You found your water. He said, out here, we have to do things differently in order to get different results. And he says, out here, you have to think differently in order to get different results. By this stage, the two crew were so thirsty, they didn't even care what old mate was talking about. They literally dove into the water and they just started drinking. They filled up all their containers and they started to walk back into the tribe. As they walked back into the tribe, the tribal elder said to the journalist, what did you learn on your journey? He said, oh my God, how important it is to trust your own inner guidance. Because back yesterday when we were walking down the track and those lions came up, I knew before those lions were even there. And he said, yes, a very wise person is always aware of their surroundings and the symbols and the signals that the universe is giving them. He said, what else did you learn? He said, I learned a lot about myself and how I can be fearful but still do things. As yesterday with those lions, I was absolutely paralyzed, but yet I still managed to do what it is that I did today. He said, yes, that is very, very important. He said that, but there's one more thing that I really want to understand. He said, what's that? He said, how is it that you not only survive but thrive out here in the harshest conditions known to man? He said, that is very easy. You need to let go and you need to trust in the universe and your environment. He said, is that it? He said, yes, just like that monkey yesterday, if he really wanted to be free, all he had to do was let go of the seeds and his hand would have come straight out of the anthill. And he said, just like we used that monkey to get to the water, we had to trust in the universe that that water was there to start with. So he said, thank you so much. They gave their little greetings and their farewells and their little, tribal sort of protocols and things that they did. And back they went into the city, back into the four-wheel drive, back onto the plane. And as they were flying back home to England, the cameraman went through his books once again. And right at the very back of the page, it said, trust in the universe. It said, let go of anything that is holding you back. And it said, all these things you already know, but need to remember. And that was the message that came from the father figure in the dream. Now, a really cool thing is they landed in England and everything was, beautiful. They did the video editing process and all those sorts of things. And what actually happened is they sent the video out into, obviously, National Geographic, and it went really well. But then they also did like a backup video of 3 years later. And the backup video of 3 years later, you would think had to do with the tribe, but it did not. It had everything to do with the journalist and his books of notes that he wrote down on that plane. And all the things that he wanted to experience, he went by them one by one by one, ticked them off, and told his story about how he experienced them all. And I just thought to myself as I sat there, thinking, oh my God, what a crazy 30 minutes of a program that was. But how true is it that during that whole process, you could just learn so much from so many different things without even really knowing that you're learning it. And I just think that is such a beautiful, powerful, and profound way to change the way that you think, feel, and act. And before you know it, Frankie came running in. They bought me an ice cream back from the shops, and we just hung out and had like a really great afternoon as a family, cherishing what it is that is most important within our life, which we believe is, our time and our connection together. So that is another Zen Den story. I hope you really enjoyed this one. And until next time, remember that there's always two sides to every coin. I'll talk to you really soon.